Oh, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. You're listening to UNBOXXD. Here,
Finally.
what we do, finally, what we do here is we take current events, live topics, things that are going on right now, most of which have controversy,
Yep.
and we unbox them. That's what we do here, okay? We take things and we unbox them. We unpackage them. We talk about them. And we talk through facts that are going on across the entire country, across the entire world. And ultimately, we give our opinions. And that's what we're here for. And the good news is, Chris, guess what? It's good to have an opinion. My name is Cody. I'll be your host. And I'm always joined by my good friend, the man, the myth, the legend. Of course, my co-host, Chris Boats. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm
you
good.
Sexy little bitch.
We've been talking about doing this for a long time.
It's been probably
2 years.
2 years.
I think last 3 months for me have been awesome. And now we have the freedom and the flexibility to do
same.
and say whatever the fuck we want.
3 months, 2 months, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Dude, you're right. It is crazy. We've been talking about this for a long time. And I think that, through the pandemic, we were like, what, should we do it? Should we not do it?
Yeah.
We had producer Rob on the sideline.
Yep.
They didn't know if we can get him involved. They didn't know what was going on. But now we're finally here, which is sweet.
Yeah.
And it's super exciting, man.
Yeah.
How's life? You good?
Dude.
You were on the sales cast a long time ago.
Yes,
baby.
yes.
Talk to us.
I couldn't be better right now. I mean, I'm out of the corporate America realm. I can say what I want, do what I want, wake up when I want, invest what I want.
Yeah.
And it's been an adjustment, but
it is an adjustment.
It was inevitable. I mean, I knew it was going to get there.
I feel the same way. I'm the same way. I will say it is an adjustment, right?
Yeah.
It is kind of weird. It's that super anxiety that everybody feels that, is my boss checking in on me, texting me, calling me, whatever the case is. Now that we're entrepreneurs doing our own things, which is super sweet. We'll talk about that as we go along.
Yeah.
But like, dude, I ain't worried about shit anymore. It's sweet. I wake up when I want to wake up. I work out when I want to work out. It's good. It's
weird though, no schedule,
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you learn
make your schedule.
Like to be successful, you don't need to have a nonstop schedule all day. And a lot of times when you're starting your own company too, there's a lot of waiting, and that was the most stressful part for me is like, you're waiting for, states to approve certain licenses or like I'm flipping homes now too, and waiting for a contractor, waiting for supplies. It's like my girlfriend would come and be like, "What'd you do today?" And I'm like,
I don't fucking know.
I didn't have to do anything. But the best part is, once I sold the house, it was like, sweetheart, listen, I was sitting by the pool last 6 months. I just paid, $250,000. So I'm doing all right.
So for those of you that are watching and listening, so Chris and I started individually and opened up our own mortgage brokerages, which is super sweet.
Yep.
Chris has been into the real estate game for quite some time, which is sweet. So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing that, and it's been a whirlwind, and we've talked about being better than where we were quite a bit, which is sweet.
Yep.
But we wanted to look. You and I have been through a lot of shit in life.
Yep.
We have a lot of great perspective, in my opinion. We don't always agree on things, and that's why we're doing things. We also agree on a lot of things, right, too. So that's why ultimately we're here. That's what we want to do. We want to give back. We want to give opinions and perspective on things that are going on in the world that need to be fucking said, but there's too many fucking people that are scared to say it, and that's what we're here to do.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today?
Introduce us.
What are we talking about today? We're talking about, I think it's something that...
To be touchy.
To be candid, I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, feel like there's more change being made because of this topic than COVID or anything else across the entire landscape, specifically when it comes to the political realm, because people are trying to shove this shit, which I'm about to announce in a second, down people's throat, and that is the transgender community. So you and I are going to chat about the transgender community, what's going on across the entire world with it, so on and so forth. We'll get your initial thoughts, my initial thoughts, and we'll go deep into this thing.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say too, and the reason why we're doing this is because there's so many times where you'll see a headline and people will look at it, say, that doesn't really matter to me, and they'll move on with their lives.
Correct.
They never go a layer or 10 layers deeper, and they never think about things critically. And that's, again, another reason why we're doing this. So I'll give it transgender community, thoughts, anything that comes in your mind when we're talking about it, this is the hot topic.
Yes. Now, one thing I'd like to preface, is I myself, and I'm sure you as well, I am not insensitive to those that are going through this identity crisis.
Sure.
Without, divulging too much, within my family, we know of a number of people that are going through this. So I have the utmost sympathy for them.
Yeah.
I understand it's hard for them. I also understand it's really hard for the families on how to approach it. And for that reason, the last number of years I've been doing a lot of research into this, which is what we're going to talk about that more. But my hope is that we can, first of all, let people know that you're not the only one that feels this is crazy. Yes. I think a lot of times, if you read the news, you feel like, am I actually, you feel like you're in a simulation. You're like, holy hell, am I the only sane person in this world? You're not. I mean, you're not the only sane person.
Yeah.
And from our experience, in corporate America, and we were doing a lot of compliance. The thing I always laughed at was there was always a question for compliance: are you male, female, or other? Yeah. And I would tell you, 99 times out of 100, when you ask that question, people would piss their pants laughing. Like, are you serious?
Come on.
Unfortunately, I'm not. I am serious. This is a real thing. Sure. So you're not alone, and I think we're gonna dive into it.
Yeah. So a couple things that come to my mind. The LBGTQ community, I think, is a courageous community. I think that not one single being, not one single letter, if you will, or human being that is a part of this community should be bullied in any way. Real talk, man. Correct. That's bullshit. That's not what we're here to do. No. We're here to just talk through some things that need to be talked through. But any person in that community, or any person fucking period, no matter what race, religion, creed, color, sexual orientation, who you fuck, what you wear, you should not be bullied.
Correct.
I've been bullied. We probably all have in some realm in this room and probably listening. Yeah. So we're not here to bully people. I'm not here to bully people. And if you are a person that's getting bullied in that realm, then there's places to get help, and you should get help, because that's not fucking right. Totally. And if you are a bully in that realm, you should fucking get fucked. Sorry about my F-bombs, but that shit pisses me off. With that being said, I personally, and you might feel a little bit differently, I personally don't care about who you have sex with, or what you do to your genitalia. You want to turn your outie into an innie, or your innie into an outie. I personally don't care. What I do care about, and what frustrates me, is when you encroach upon other people's freedoms, when you encroach upon other people's sport, which I'm sure we'll get into. That shit pisses me off. And, this is initial thoughts. Look, dude, one thing that's my initial thoughts, I'm getting goosebumps because it fucking pisses me off, is I think females in this country specifically have come a long way. Yeah. And if you look, 90% of the world, women can't vote. They have to wear things that they only show their eyes and ankles. And they don't have the freedoms that women have here in the U.S. And I'm fucking damn proud of the females that we have inside of this country. We have, what, like it, love it, hate it. Now, whatever the case is, we have a VP as a female. We have incredible women in your life and my life across the world that are incredible, that do great things. Totally. And I don't know why they aren't fucking screaming at the top of their lungs that these mediocre men are coming in here and trying to take through their sport and take through and take jobs from them that they're fucking screaming about. Correct. Like, it pisses me off. And honestly, my initial thought is, these females and males, this is what we're doing right now, should be screaming on top of a mountain because these loser men that are taking their jobs and their sport. And it pisses me off. And I hope that if you're a woman listening to this right now, that you start to make a trend and a movement. Yeah. That's my initial thought.
Totally. And if you guys don't know what Cody is referencing specifically, which has brought about this whole conversation, I think, amongst us, but also the whole country, is the whole Leah Thomas situation. Yeah. So to give some context, this was about, I think, a little bit over a year ago, and I'm going to reference him as a dude because I think he's a dude.
Well, hold on. Can we say this real quick?
Yes.
This is important.
Yes.
Biology. We just had our SCOTUS.
Yes. Potential.
Southern Supreme Court SCOTUS. Say, what is a woman? She couldn't define it. It's very simple. Biologically. You are an XY. You are a man.
That's it.
That's it. If you are an XX, you are a woman.
That's it. Every part of you is woman.
That's it. Chromosome.
Your brain, your your ovaries, your dick, that's how it works.
Yeah.
So if you stepped on a mine and you blew up, and they found a piece of you,
DNA.
every part of you would be your assigned gender.
I just
despite
took
what you think.
A DNA test. Turns out I'm 100% XY. That's what Leah Thomas is. Okay.
So yes.
Yeah.
So she or he was a year ago a male swimmer. He was like 485th ranked male swimmer.
Mediocre.
Okay. Mediocre. You know what's crazy is I was looking this up, and we can talk about censorship and social media and stuff.
We'll get there, baby.
You know that. So anyways, this guy was 485th ranked swimmer. He then transitions to a female. He is now the #1 ranked female.
Yeah.
Okay. What's fascinating is online, if you try to look up his height and stuff, they say he identifies his height as 5'8".
Come on, man.
It's wild. Okay. But what is so fascinating,
dude, hold on.
It's real.
Hold on.
It's real.
Hold on. I know, but hold on.
You can't find his height. You have to dig deep.
I played high school. I played sports in general and whatever. I was mediocre. I mean, I wasn't a professional, but I damn sure wasn't going to encroach and go fucking play for women because I was better. Yeah.
Robbie went to school with him.
Dude, check it out though. Hold on.
Anyways.
I lost my, I can't believe what you just said.
So social media is, you can't even find the guy's real height.
My point is this.
Yes,
my point is this. So you know Max Preps? You know Max Preps?
Yes.
Producer Rob?
Yes.
You got to put how tall you were and how big you were on there. Motherfucker, I identified as what I am because I am what I am.
Correct.
If I'm 6'1",
you might have thrown
230,
an extra inch.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe an extra inch, but I'm assuming that person, Leah, went down. Anyways, I apologize.
Which is fascinating. No, it's fascinating. But what I think is crazy about it, I think it's the first time that the American population has been able to actually see and visualize the absolute insanity that is the transgender ideology.
Sure.
Okay. And I think prior to this event and people seeing these photos, people would be scrolling their TikTok, see some crazy, person with blue hair, and they identify their pronouns are Z, Zay, Zer, and most people just kind of scroll past it and say, you know what? That's crazy. That's that's not actually real, right? And I think the problem is that Americans, especially conservatives, we very much kind of mind our own business and say let them do whatever they want. That's not going to impact us. The reality, though, is eventually it is going to impact us. And it's kind of sad, but it took until this ideology impacted sports for Americans to give a shit.
That's what I meant by this is making more waves.
Correct, because we care about sports, but sports are our pastime, but sports only function if there's an even playing field. Otherwise, sports are irrelevant if there's not an even playing field to start. So I think what happened is you see the pictures of this guy. He's actually like 6'3". He's got a huge wingspan. The guy's got a bulge, standing next to these other women that lost, that are 8 inches shorter.
Dude.
100. The guy's 215 pounds. They're 100 pounds less. And there is no article that these leftists can show. There is no, pro transgender scientist that can tell anyone who saw those photos and say, these are the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So
I went to dinner with my mom last night. We were talking about it before the show. And my mom's 5'11". It's a big girl, man. I'm not going to disclose her weight. She'll probably kill me. But she's a big girl.
Yeah.
And the reality of the situation is, no matter how far women have come from a women's rights standpoint or what have you, the reality of the situation is God made men and women different.
Yep.
Not only from a DNA standpoint and a biology standpoint, but from a physical standpoint. Mm-hmm. And you can't argue. I know that people feel this, but they're too scared to fucking talk about it. You can't tell me that it's okay for that dude to go into the octagon with those women and beat the shit out of three MMA fights, and then had a fourth, and this woman actually whooped his ass, which was sweet.
Love that.
But you can't do that. You can't say that looking at that picture of Leah Thomas, since we're on that topic, he is 6'2" or some shit. The girl that's in third place, and I'm going to get to something in a second. I want to transfer back to you.
No, keep going.
But the girl that's in third place, Texas shirt, she might be all of 5 foot tall. You're talking about a foot of thrust and propulsion in the pool. Now, look, a 10-foot shark is less fast than a 20-foot shark. It has more propulsion. It's physics, right?
Yes.
So physically, he is more encroaching and bigger and faster and stronger than all of the others. So that's one thing. The other thing that like really irks me about this whole situation, we're just talking about one. This is like a blip in the time of transgender. If you will, is I want you to. I play college ball. I play college sports. I've done things that are a finite game. They're not infinite. What we're doing right now is the infinite game. I'm going to talk about shit until I fucking die, and ultimately life is a finite game. But you're only in college for 4 years, sometimes 5 or 6, right, Chris? I'm just kidding. Sometimes, so you're in college for 4 years, sometimes 2 for me. I dropped out, whatever. So you're only in college for a certain amount of time. And you're in the national championships for what you've been born and bred to do. You got in the pool when you were 6 years old as a little girl.
Think about all the time they've spent, the money their families have spent, the swim meets they've gone to.
The swim meets, man.
The parents, keep going.
Everything.
Yeah.
And to sit in the national championship and have some dude come in and steal that from you, and you be on the podium as a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th place next to a dude. That to me is absolutely disgusting and pisses me off to no other, because that 2nd place person, you'll never know her name. I don't even know her name right now.
No,
and
that's bad. It's bad, yeah.
And we're talking about Leah Thomas. We should be talking about that girl and celebrating that female and all her accomplishments, not this dude that came in that's mediocre and decided to encroach on women's sports.
It's crazy.
Dude.
Now, so I have been against this, like I shared, because I have people that I know throughout from my family in my life that are going through this. Now, the reason I've been against it is because I believe that this ideology truly is toxic and evil.
Okay.
And what it does is it targets victims, and I've done a lot of research on this, targets victims that more often than not have gone through sexual abuse. It looks for them. Or it targets victims that are going through some chemical imbalance or suffer from mental illness.
Sure.
And what it does is it persuades these people to believe that they are activists and they're fighting for equality. Now, I don't believe that inherently these people are bad, but I just don't think that they understand the real motive of what this ideology is going to ultimately accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think that's common with a lot of activist movements that we see.
Okay.
So, I mean, let's look at a few. So, for example, Black Lives Matter, okay? We don't need to get too deep into it.
Black
Lives Matter,
that's going to be
we will eventually, but Black Lives Matter is a great message. I think almost everyone in the world agrees Black Lives Matter. Okay?
If you don't, fuck you.
Correct.
I'm sorry, ladies.
But the reality is Black Lives Matter actually does almost negligible things for the Black community. In fact, if you ever look at the charter, the organization.
Correct.
Now, the founders of Black Lives Matter, the organization, on their charter, they're both 2 females. They both are open Marxists that talk about how the goal of BLM is to destroy the nuclear family and to basically destroy capitalist America. Okay. Now, ironically, these owners are out there buying, they just each bought like 5 homes in LA that are $5 million each. They're doing extremely, extremely well. Okay. But the point is that, when you see, your liberal friends, you see people out front who put like the black fist or, I support Black Lives Matter. They're actually good people. They're compassionate. But what they don't understand is that it has nothing to do with actually improving Black Lives Matter. It's simply an agenda to create chaos and division in a society. That is the objective.
Chaos. Hold on. Say it again. Chaos and division in the society.
That's the goal.
So you're relating BLM and the organization specifically and transgender, because what you're saying is that if I can get you to say that a male is a female and a female is a male, what else can we do?
Anything.
Does that make sense?
Literally anything. And if you ever study like Karl Marx, he's the one, he's the head of communism. He wrote the Communist Manifesto. They literally talk about in the book how in order for a totalitarian or communist government to take over, you need to utilize activist groups, fuel them, fund them to basically create division so that people hate each other so much that we give power to the federal government to a point where we can't ever get our power back. So another example, I know we were touching on this earlier, but The feminist movement. Okay, we would all agree the feminist movement was great. Women should be able to work, do whatever the hell they want. They should vote.
It's continuous and it's still happening.
Correct.
And it's going to continue to happen. And I feel like we're the most equal we've ever been. The only thing maybe that we can maybe argue or debate is maybe the wealth gap or the income gap.
There is no income gap.
But that's something, again, we can debate. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, guys. Corporate America, do you think if they could get away with paying every employee $0.70% on the dollar, why would every corporation not be ran by women?
So what you're saying is it's us versus them. Corporate America versus
no,
people?
I'm just saying, let's think logically. If there's, we can get into the analysis and how there's all these different variables from degree to children to anyways. But where I was going is the feminist movement, believe it or not, it was funded, and this is all, you can research this. I know I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but...
Well, hold on about the conspiracy theorists. You know what? I want people to look at the conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories.
Question me. If I say something, question it.
But my point is, look at the conspiracy theories that have been going on from masks to vaccines to COVID to transgender to Black Lives Matter, so everything you possibly can think of over the last couple of years. Here's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is prove those wrong. Because the reality of the situation is, it's not conspiracy theories, they're conspiracy realities.
Correct. And everything we say, question
it's fucking conspiracy.
You should question everything. That's something I was taught by my dad. Question everything. Yeah. Do your own research. But where I was going is, the feminist movement, believe it or not, which is a good movement. Again, we all agree with the movement.
Same thing with Black Lives Matter.
It was funded by the Rockefellers, which are like the Rothschilds, the globalist families. And what they're on record saying, the Rockefellers saying, that they funded the movement. They said, why'd you do it? Well, for two reasons. Number one, if we can get women working, we can tax them as well. So we make more tax money off the people.
Sure.
The second reason was, well, if we can persuade Americans to have both the man and woman working, well, then the state gets to raise their kids. They can indoctrinate any population. So my point is, even with this feminist...
Deep state.
Correct. They can indoctrinate everyone by pushing CRT, transgender, because the reality is most of parents are both working. They don't have time for their kids, so they pass them on to the state to control them. It's the ultimate...
More parents, less government.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
The moral of the story is you got to question these activist movements instead of thinking with your heart and your compassion, which you should.
Yeah.
You got to think logically, follow the money, understand why is it that they're pushing this? Because if the goal of now flipping it back to the transgender ideology, the goal of it, I truly believe, straight out of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, is to destroy the nuclear family. For those that don't know, the nuclear family is the idea of, a man and woman raise their kids, you take care of your family.
There's a patriarchy within
Correct. Then if you take care of your family, you can take care of your neighborhood. You can then take care of your county. You can take care of your state. You can take care of your country. You can take care of the world. We rely on each other. It starts with the family. It's a crucial part. We rely on each other. Now, why would a communist or someone who wants a totalitarian government, why would they want to destroy the nuclear family? Because a population that has strong nuclear family is also self-sufficient. We rely on our neighbors. We rely on our friends. We rely on each other. Yeah. A government cannot take over a population if they're self-sufficient. So what they have to do is destroy the pillars, which is that, so that we all hate each other. We all depend on the federal government for health care, universal health care, benefits. They gave us a little $1,500. California's now giving an extra $800 per car to pay for the gas that they increased. That is the goal of this movement, which is why I'm so against it, which is why we have to do everything in our power to fight it.
So the funny part is, or not the funny part, but the realistic part is this. Chris connected dots between a transgender movement and what's going on to so many different things, okay? And for those of you that haven't been able to connect the dots over the last few years, you're welcome. Chris says you're welcome. But then number two is you got to realize that it is all connected. This is a thing.
Totally.
If they can divide, they can conquer. It's the truth.
Correct.
Right? So I want to talk to you through a little bit about this transgender thing, because I was thinking about it this morning, because I know we obviously were going to pod. And I was thinking about gay and lesbian folk that have maybe for the gays, have very feministic or feminist type of mannerisms and so on and so forth. And also on the other side, lesbians that have maybe manly features or manly mannerisms and so on and so forth, those two people. There's a lot of studies that show that over 70% of people that actually get a sex change regret it later in life.
Correct.
And my thought process is, do people that are of the gay and lesbian or what have you, and they think that they should be a female, or maybe a gay person is maybe the female or the feminist or feministic, I don't even know how to explain it, type, or basically the girl of the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like as a gay.
Yes.
And then vice versa, the male of the lesbian relationship. I don't know how to say it. Maybe it's ignorant, whatever the case is. Do you think that they just take it a little too far? Or do you really think that it is a mental disorder, which that's what I like to get into?
I do think it's a mental disorder. Okay. I think, again, they're targeting people with identity crisis that often pops up in adolescence. Identity crises pop up, because people are trying to figure out their place in the world. But I think trans is trendy. If you look at the statistics, it's become more of a thing. So the person that I know, they initially came out as gay. That was totally fine. But the problem is these people are those that seek attention. They're victims. So what happened is, all of society said, oh, we're cool with gays. Like, no one really gives a shit. Bang whoever you want.
Do your thing.
No one gives a fuck. But these people, then they said, hang on, that's not victimization enough. I need to be more. So what was the next thing? It was trans. So yes, I think it's trendy. I think there is something to be said about being a mental disorder, because there's common chemical imbalances that we can point to and signify and talk about. We can talk about anorexia, bulimia. Yep. We can talk through so many different things, but my main thing before we get into that, because I know we're going is, and forgive me for being a fucking Christian. It's church on Sunday, baby boy. Yeah.
But God made you. The reason why I think it might be a mental disorder, and again, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not long on this. I'm whatever the case is, but hear me out. Is God made you perfect when you were born. Even the imperfections that you have, let's say you're born without a hand, whatever the case is, even the imperfections that you have is still perfect. Now, your actions, what you do day in and day out, so on and so forth, make you imperfect as you sin. But for you to mutilate your body and change your anatomy is, in my opinion, a mental disorder. I don't care. Like, that to me is crazy. And it goes against everything that you can ever look at with inside of the Bible, or against any sort of social construct or what have you, to completely change your anatomy on what you were given.
Yeah.
It just, that's, I think for me, like, just kind of blows my mind. And that's why I think it is a mental disorder, because you're literally mutilating your body. For what? It's called, for fucking what?
Correct. And it's called gender dysphoria. And what I'd like to kind of move into next is, I kind of went to my conspiracy-ridden, the money behind the movements, the activist group.
Soros.
Let's talk about like real world, the harms that this can have.
Yeah.
And let's talk about some other mental illnesses, how we approach those as a reference. So I think what's important is, again, we bring this back to real world application so that people can kind of see the insanity. So one thing worth noting is, prior to it being trendy to be trans, as we talked about, it was referred to in psychology books as gender dysphoria. Okay. Now, I'd like to get a little more real here. So a lot of people, perhaps some of you included, know someone that is anorexic. Okay. And anorexia is something that, again, we mentioned, pops up during adolescence when a lot of people are going through identity crisis. Okay. We
all have.
Yeah, everyone goes through some transition period. You're very sensitive then. You're very, very sensitive. You're very, very influential then. Now, it typically impacts women. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to say she, but some men actually get impacted by it too. But with those that are anorexic, again, they think that they are fat, or they think that they're ugly. They hate the way they look. So they often become bulimic. They throw up, they're not eating, and they die from this. Correct. So if you leave it untreated, they'll get to a point where their teeth are falling out because they have no nutrients. Their organs start shutting down. I know people, and it impacts them for for the rest of their lives. They never just get over it.
Well, because those mental scars and those mental issues that you go through, look, man, you go through some shit that deep down inside of you is buried and ultimately comes out randomly. And it doesn't matter if you've gotten through that and over it and you've had all the help in the world. Guess what? It's still there.
And I have that same sympathy for those that are going through transgenderism or transgender ideology.
Again, back to 70+%, they get the actual gender alteration. They regret it later in life.
So let's look at the comparisons. Okay, so first, for both people that are transgender and those that are anorexic, despite what biology and reality is saying, their minds think something else. So in the anorexic, they think they're fat and ugly. The reality is they're probably already overly skinny. The person that's transgender, biology, they're a female. They think they're a dude. Okay. Example 2 is there is no outcome where they are all of a sudden satisfied. So an anorexic person doesn't, after throwing up and starving themselves, doesn't wake up one day and say, you know what?
Yeah.
I love the way I look.
There's not like a goal weight. It's Correct. Not like, 105 is where Correct. I'm going to end it.
They're never happy. And that's the same thing as you've referenced. People that go through sex reassignment surgery or take the hormones, even after doing that, they still suffer from the same depression, which is now
it's an identity
number 3. The depression and suicide rates among transgender and anorexics are almost identical. Okay.
Really?
And what is important to note is people would say, well, yeah, it's because they get bullied. No, it's not, you dipshit. So someone, let's say, who doesn't have those thoughts is here. Okay. On the spectrum, someone who gets bullied is like an inch higher. Okay. Those that suffer from mental illness, schizophrenia, anorexia, in this case, body dysmorphia, are up here. Okay. And that's super important to know because these people are suffering. They need help. Just like a schizophrenic, if you've ever worked in the healthcare field, you're never supposed to entertain the schizophrenics,
second nature
or dreams or reality or whatever. Yeah. You don't entertain it. You say, no, you're wrong. Put them in your place, because once you entertain it, it allows it gets too chaotic.
Correct.
We are allowing...
If you've ever seen the movie Split, you know exactly what he's talking about.
Exactly. So now as a parent, or if you know someone that's gone through anorexia, would it be responsible for you to say, you know what, sweetheart, I know you hate the way you look, and I know you believe that you're fat, so you know what, continue doing what you're doing. You have my support. Take what you want, throw up in the toilet. As a matter of fact, I won't even make dinner anymore. No. You would take that person, Child Protective Services come take that child away from you because you're a fucking shitty parent.
Yes.
Be a fucking parent.
Yes.
But with transgender, it's become so mainstream and so such an emotional plea, which is, so a lot of liberal parents are saying, no, it's fine. If you choose that at 3 years old, it's weird.
Dude.
My point is, as a society.
Yeah.
Would it be responsible for us to all of a sudden adopt all anorexics and say, you know what, we support you, do what you want? No. As adults, it is our duty for those that need help, we get them help. So with transgender ideology as well, we need to get them help. We don't just accept them because that's what they want. That's not the way society functions.
So when I'm thinking about, in the beginning of this episode, I talked about like, look, man, I don't care. Do what you want. Fuck who you want. Do what you want. Do what you want to your body. Like, listening to what you just said, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And people should be getting help. And look, if you get help and you're mentally stable or whatever the case is, and your diagnosis is mentally stable and you still want to do it, then you still want to do it, but then it never gets satisfied.
Correct.
And that's the thing that you're talking about. That part never gets satisfied. On the topic of parenting specifically, like, man, more parents, less government. More parenting is going to help this. The reality is there's a broken human inside of all of us that haven't had the parents that we've needed. And then that person that is broken inside and has never had that parenting, so to speak, then has kids. Then you start to have kids and you're a broken human being and you don't know how to deal with those things. You've never seeked wise counsel. So you don't have wise counsel to see how to be an actual great parent, how to deal with things like that, because you never had a parent to deal with things like that.
Yeah.
So you're so right in the fact that
feedback loop.
Correct. It's just a loop.
Yeah.
And that loop is transitioning into something that you and I have talked about for a long time, which is strong men create great times create what? Weak men.
Yep.
Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Yep. And it's this loop and it's this circle. And ultimately, you can replace men with parents if you'd like to in this example. Sure. And ultimately, strong parenting and parents in general is going to help.
We should dive deeper into that quote later on too.
We will.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, it really is.
So kind of a funny story on this. So I was talking to this person who is very pro-trans, okay? And this is
Can we elaborate on that?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So this is someone who is...
Like, how are you pro-trans?
Well, they're
anti-trans, but I'm not anti-trans. I'm not pro-trans. I'm trans fact.
So they are the type of people that, they're on the left. They know a lot of people that are trans. They're more just, they're very...
But why does it, and this is a question that I'll always ask, always. Why does it always have to be a polarizing topic of they're on the left, so they think this way? Well, because... I know you have a good answer for this, and that's why I'm asking you, because the reality of the situation is this is more just like COVID, and we're going to have an episode on that, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
But this is a biology conversation. This is a social construct conversation. This really isn't a political conversation unless you make it a political conversation, which we didn't make it a political conversation. The politics did.
Correct.
The political conversation is polarizing because ultimately they made it polarizing. And Chris is saying that because dude, the crazy part is the left and the Democratic Party, and we'll get into this. We have a politics episode coming.
Yeah.
Is a great party. The left ain't the left no more, though. The left has been so pulled in this crazy thought process that it ain't even real anymore.
Well, can I ask you a question, too?
Sure. Sorry.
Guys, do you guys actually think that the left, your representatives, the Joe Bidens, the Pelosi's, the Clintons, Hillary Clinton, when they're hanging in their Nantucket mansions, drinking their old fashions, and they're all meeting up, do you really think that they think, they actually support trans people? No, they're laughing their ass off. It's simply that trans are just the next victim group that they can swoop in and take to the left. It used to be the feminist movement, then it was the black community, then it was minorities, then it was gays, but then all of a sudden those are all accepted. What was next? Trans.
It's crazy, and the trans community is very small. There's, you think about the black community.
It's correct.
It's unbelievably small.
Wild.
The black community is 14%.
It's wild. They're as loud as they are.
But it is wild, correct? Yeah. Because they have no, it's unbelievable. But my point is, those folks that you're talking about, these career politicians, and we went to politics. It is what it is. So it's just what the fuck we want.
Yeah.
But the reality of the situation is they're losing these votes and these thoughts and these people day in and day out because they come in, they say, hey, I'm going to do all this shit for you. And they create the problem so that they can get reelected again. They're like, oh, well, I told you I was going to do this, but it takes a little bit longer. Meanwhile, they're creating more problems ultimately just to get reelected again. It is a cycle. And the good thing is you fucking people that are watching are actually watching this and saying, yo, this is fucked up and this is cyclical and I'm watching this over and over again and you ain't doing shit. So I'm going to stop fucking voting for you fucking people.
Yeah.
So,
well, what's funny is, and we'll have a political one soon, but guys, the left, Democrats control the presidency, the House, and the Senate. What's happened in the last year is 100% Democrat.
Right.
With Trump, we had periods of he was in, but then there'd be a Democratic House. Like we never had all three.
Yeah, it was 2 out of 3.
Ready to roll. You guys have all 3 ready to roll. So this is 100% your fault. 100%. You guys could change, put in legislation, you could change everything, but. That
change
aside,
legislation, put everything. Yeah. This is your fault, buddy.
Well, yeah, exactly. So
this is your
fault. It's wild, dude. It's wild.
Yeah.
So, but when I was going is I was talking to someone who's very pro-trans, and one of the arguments they like to say is, well, sex and gender are different, which is some gender theories nonsense. But sex and gender are different. So sex is what you're born with. Gender is a social construct that society created to basically put us in roles, and they'll always reference, well. Back in India in the 200 AD, there were populations without male and female genders. I guess there was, right? So very weird, right? They're trying to use that as justification. So what I do is I always ask a few questions, and this is where it stumps them. And one thing important to note is everything from socialism to this transgender ideology, all of these ideas, they're not meant to actually be debated. They're not meant to be put to the test of time. It's like prophecy. It's not meant to actually be. It's not actually policy. That's why no one debates socialism. No one really debates trans. You don't see that because it's not an actual logical art.
They know. Everyone knows.
Exactly. So I always
Which is why, by the way, we started this. We started our podcast Unbox on this topic is because of that entire thing that you're saying right now. Everybody knows that it's not okay for these humans to encroach on sporting and so on and so forth that are males. And so, like this, the first part of the podcast we talked about, everybody knows.
Correct.
You get somebody on a hot mic somewhere and we need to talk about canceling because that's why everybody knows, but nobody's saying it. Why is nobody saying it? Because they don't want to be canceled.
Correct.
Good.
Correct.
Fucking cancel.
Correct. But for your entertainment, if you ever run, you're talking to your lefty friend who's pro this. So the first question I always ask is, so if you were, killed and buried in the woods and you're dug up 500 years from now, what would they identify you as? Well, clearly, your sex, right? They'd say you're a woman or I'm a dude, right? They'd figure that out within minutes. Scientists would, right? So that's where the argument of, gender is different and that's a social construct. So I always ask a few questions just to kind of gather their thoughts.
I love this.
I say, okay, let's do this. So, and I'm talking to my leftist friend.
I'll be your leftist friend.
Yes, I say. If I told you that I want to identify as a 75-year-old, would you be okay with that? Most of the time they'll say, okay, maybe not. Tell me why.
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, because, let's say my body really hurts. Like I have low energy compared to my peers. I actually feel that I'm 75 years old. I actually feel in my mind, mentally, I feel I'm physically 75. And by the same argument that you just used, my leftist friend, time is a social construct. I mean, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes,
biggest social construct.
60 seconds in a 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours a day. We made that,
why do we eat dinner at 7 p.m.?
In Aztec times, they didn't have the same time. That's a social construct. So then they always say, when you hit them with that, they say, yes, I would accept you as 75-year-old. If you want to identify as that, I'm okay with that. So then you say, okay, well then, can I apply for Social Security income? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm like, why not? Well, because you're not actually 75, right? So they get in a little flustered.
Like a moral tiff.
Yeah, it's like, well, so then should we let anyone who identifies as 75, let's give them Social Security? They don't like, they start to get, now this one they really hate because if you know Democrats, they control minorities, they control race. That's they get to make the narratives for it. So I said, can I identify as being black?
No.
Absolutely not. Of course, at first, because that's their little baby. You can't take that one. Well, I said, well, hang on. What if I grew up, in Compton? I grew up, all my friends are black. I went to all black high school. I play, I listen to that music, the culture. That is truly me. I talk the same. That is me. As opposed to the black kid who grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, whose dad's a surgeon. His friends are all white and he drives a Mercedes Benz at 15 years old. Who is more black? Because, and then they get a little flustered. Yeah. Right? Because in my head, I would think, my point is race, it's also a social construct, right?
Sure.
You can even take it further, right? So I said, all right, well, so then that one, they get flustered, they don't have a response. And I said, because with all due respect, I think I have more in common with someone who's a different race than I do with someone who's a different gender.
Correct.
If you buried me up, my example 500 years from now, it'd be harder to tell what race I was than what gender I was.
Correct.
Inevitably.
Wait, say it again so people can hear what you just said.
Yeah.
If you dug me up, it would be harder to find out
what my race was
rather than your
gender.
100%.
Correct. So then you could take it, more so for fun as I said, okay, what if I told you I identify as a doctor and she's, this person? Well, absolutely not. I'm like, but the medical system, the education is a social construct. I want to be a doctor. Call me Dr. Bose. They don't want to do that. Then you take it even further.
I might call you that. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. But then you take it even further and you say, well, what if I identify as a dog?
Yeah.
Then they're like, if you want to be a dog, it just goes to show the insanity of it. So people then will ask, well, why do you care? Why does it matter so much? Well, because society only we're function based off rules and laws. We have an agreed upon social contract that we all agree to these laws to some extent, okay? Now, these laws are not perfect, but these laws are based off of the majority, okay? Off of the median, right? Sure. Now, you don't create, now there will always be exceptions to this. There will always be the outliers that don't fit in this majority. It's inevitable. I mean, there are some people that believe they're dogs. You can find videos of, someone walking.
Literally.
But my point is, do we let them on Delta Airlines and say, you know what, they can fly for free if they sit on your lap?
Yeah.
Fuck no, we don't, because that's insane, right?
Yeah.
So then the next thing I'll get is, well,
it is insane.
It's fucking insane.
It's insane.
It's truly
bending
insane.
reality.
And that's the whole point of it, is to create chaos and uncertainty. We're going to dive into something here in a bit about how it's meant to separate our brains from logic. But then the other thing too, which I always just mention for fun, is they'll say, well, what about equality? Inclusion for all. Motherfucker, does the NBA have equality? I mean, does some 4'8" loppy fat fuck get to play in the NBA?
Loppy little fat white guy?
No
way.
They don't get to play in the fucking NBA, because NBA is for athletes, and typically that are tall. Like, if we let this idea of equality and inclusion into all elements of our life, things will fall apart. It will be nothing but a mush of, it's insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. 100%. It's insane, so much so that there's no hierarchy of what things really truly mean. And if you have a hierarchy of things, you have to look at biology and merit. And what you're talking about is merit. You have to have some sort of merit when it comes to physical skills and basketball IQ to be a fucking basketball player. I'm sorry.
Correct.
There is merit there.
Correct.
There's also merit in being a general. There's also merit in being a SCOTUS. There's merit in these things. It's not just who you think you are or identify as or what have you. There's merit and there's biology.
Yes.
Those are two things that we have to look at. And I just keep going back to the sport thing. Just you can't, without those two things, that's something that you have to look at, merit and biology. We talked about sport. We talked about basketball. We talked about anything you can possibly think about, merit and biology. Those are the two things we have to foster and harness to move forward in this transgender world, I guess, that we're living in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and there's merit in being a woman. There's merit in being a man.
Correct.
Too.
And I agree. 100%.
It's just, it's really sad. I mean, it really is. I think one thing, so I recently finished the book 1984.
George Orwell.
George Orwell. So quick 10,000 foot view. It's, it's a dystopian utopia that takes place in the future. And it's basically the government, which is called the Big Brother, controls every element of our lives, right? And society has fallen into like perpetual war. There's mass surveillance. But the really fascinating part in there is they have something that the government employs called the thought police. The thought police attacks those that have individual thoughts, anything that doesn't fit the mainstream.
Sounds familiar.
Right? It's super, super eerie. But what I was thinking about was, how is that any different than what we have going on now? We're getting fed nonstop propaganda. If you try to say anything outside the narrative,
canceled.
You're getting canceled or censored. I mean, if you think back to COVID, I mean, like Joe Rogan referenced in his thing, if you said in the beginning of COVID that masks don't work, that you can still get and spread COVID if you take the vaccine, you were removed off of social media.
Completely.
Turned out completely true. So there was
Dr. Robert Bell, I think is his name.
Yeah,
There's a couple. Robert Anderson, something like that. There's a couple of them. I got fucking canceled. I got canceled, and part of the letting go from the organization that I was currently with was me spitting fact and truth about mask wearing with inside of the office that we fucking were in.
Yeah.
And it got brought up when, we mutually separated from the company and we parted ways. It got brought up about me talking through the real truth, identity or facts and science behind mask wearing in social environments. And
which is crazy.
I got canceled because of that.
Which is crazy.
It's a form of canceling, dude. It pisses me off.
Well, so what is crazy is that when people say, like, I know this exact organization, they kept saying, well, we're following the science. Science is not a thing. Science is the process to which we get to
evolving
conclusion. We 100%. Make a hypothesis, we theorize, and the beauty of it is other scientists are meant to question your work.
Yes.
You have to prove it without a doubt for us to assume it is true.
Yeah.
Right? So have you ever, you know who Copernicus is?
Yeah.
So Copernicus, for those that know, he was the scientist and mathematician and astrologist back in, I don't know, that
1382.
Whatever
AD.
it was. And he was the first one to discover that
look that shit up, by the way.
the Earth actually revolves around the sun.
Yeah.
Prior to that, society all thought that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything else revolved around us.
Yeah.
And this was almost, the Catholic Church was so prevalent at the time, so we kind of just agreed to it. But Copernicus, when he comes out and he says
1473. I said 1382 is 1473.
That was pretty close, actually.
Polish, by
that was
the way.
pretty
It's
close.
Polish.
There you
Shout
go.
out to my Polish friends.
But he came out and he said that, and because it questioned the science at the time, he was thrown in prison, beaten up, and silenced.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, eventually, here's the thing that everyone needs to forget: you don't need to block lies because the truth always prevails in the end.
The truth is the World War champ, undefeated, undisputed,
prevails.
Heavyweight champion of the world.
Correct. So now eventually other scientists adopted it and became mainstream. Now everyone knows that the sun is the center of our solar system, right?
Yeah.
That's what we have going on today. So when these social media companies are blocking misinformation, the reality is, who the fuck are you to determine what is misinformation?
Well, I think the reality that we all need to understand right now is that anything that you see that is considered misinformation is true information. And anything that you see on the tube typically is misinformation. So it's a complete opposite.
It's wild.
It's unbelievable.
But you need to let people talk. Let us.
Well, that's
have
why
these
we've been
debates.
isolated for so long, man.
Correct.
That's why they want us isolated for so long. That's why they're going back to
Correct.
transgender. They want us to be separated by ourselves. They don't want people at the bars talking about this.
Yes.
They don't want us in the room eating some pizza, drinking some beers, talking about this type of thing, which is the point. You keep trying to separate and segregate people and put people on different sides of the ball so that ultimately they can clash.
We hate each other.
And it's look over here, not over here. Look over here, not over here. Look at this transgender situation. Look at this. This is the top headlines. Meanwhile, we're paying Russia $50 million a fucking month or a week or whatever the case is for fucking gas. But we're putting sanctions on him. We're giving him money, but putting sanctions on Russia and Putin.
Makes no sense.
No. Look at Leah Thomas. Don't look at this. No. Don't look at this $50 million that we're spending per week in gas.
Yeah.
And your fucking gas price is $5.69 a gallon.
Yeah.
Don't look at that.
No.
Look at this.
Yeah.
That's the point. And for
Blames
people
it
to
on
not
Russia,
understand,
too.
it's unbelievable, dude.
It's it's on that topic you were saying of keeping us separated and stuff. I remember COVID, there was a George Floyd riots, that whole incident happened.
Yeah.
And we're
going to get into, and it's going to be great.
We're here in Arizona, so we're pretty blessed. The lockdowns are very limited, if that. But I remember there was such racial tension in the country, right and left on social media. But the funniest part was we had gone out to Old Town. If you've been to Old Town, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And we bought a table. We were at Maya. And man, if people just put their fucking phones down and turn off their TVs, you look around and you realize, most people love each other.
Oh my God.
Black friends, white friends, Asian friends, gay
Transgender
friends. We're all fucking
go
friends.
have a conversation with a transgender human being.
Correct. And
go have a conversation with them.
As you should.
9 out of 10. Yeah, of course. And be empathetic. No shit. Don't bully. My point is, though, to your point, go have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because 9 out of 10 folks that are transgender, including Bruce Jenner, has even said the exact same things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the exact same things.
Yeah.
The point is, there is a very small, minute group that is trying to stir up chaos. And it's 1 out of 10 transgenders. It is not 9 out of 10. Most transgender folk, because that's what this whole episode's about,
minding their own
are
business.
great fucking humans that are just minding their own business. And then there's one. Just like, you know what? Just like I'm a white male, you're a white male, Robbie's a white male. Just like, and I can't even say 9 out of 10 are great like transgenders. 6 out of 10 white males across the U.S. are great people, but there's 4 dickheads. And you know what? Those are my people, and they're dickheads, and they should get their fucking teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
Just like that one transgender person should get their fucking teeth kicked in too.
Correct.
Sorry.
Well, and when you see an
asshole's an asshole. It doesn't matter what race, creed, color, sexual orientation you're an asshole.
Oh yeah, totally. So there's a couple quotes in this book that I thought were fascinating because I
don't promote violence.
No,
unless sometimes.
If you relate it to what's going on now. So there's a quote in there and it says, Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together in new shapes of your own choosing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really fascinating because this ideology is there to separate us from logic and everything we know as human beings. And they're trying to mold us into these new, basically compassionate, utopia-seeking people that accept all blindly, right? Which is their goal. I think that's the goal. But
I said it earlier, but look, guys, listeners, if you're still listening, you haven't tuned us out. I'm kidding. If you can get a human being,
bro,
to say that a male is a female and a female is a male, you can get anyone to do anything fucking ever.
You're literally reading my mind. The next quote I took is, there's a quote in there. It says, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength." And it's talking about how the government could persuade the people that war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
Yeah.
So as Cody said, if they can get us to believe a woman is a man and a man is a woman, they can really get us to believe anything.
Anything.
And what this ideology is trying to do is basically bend our reality and create a reality that's just not based in fact.
Yeah.
And you can't have a society that functions like that.
Yeah. I agree.
So as a society, we cannot change the rules of our society to entertain, and this is not in a derogatory sense, an actually sick person's delusions. We have to get them help.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah. I guess we'll go closing thoughts.
Yeah.
My ask, and I'll pass to you, and then I'll turn this thing out. But my ask is that ultimately anybody that's listening to this to dig a layer deeper. You know what? Look, it's not easy for Chris and I to come on here and talk about controversial things, but it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that's what leadership's all about. That's what being a community leader is all about. But when you see things, I'll pass to Chris to end this out. When you see things that you might not understand, that might make you feel different, that might make you feel uncomfortable, that might challenge maybe your thinking to not get frustrated or not think differently, but ultimately question some things and go a few layers deeper. So Chris, I'll end it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my solution to it, just thinking kind of off the hip, is first we have to protect our kids.
Yeah.
Children should not at a young age be being talked about sexual identity. No. Can you imagine being an 8-year-old and your teacher saying you can be gay, straight, man, woman, any gender? It's just you're already trying to figure it out. But this falls on
5 fucking years old.
Correct.
That's not the time for it.
Correct. This falls
12,
on the
maybe.
parents. Number one, parents need to take responsibility for their kids and make sure they're having those conversations with them, keeping their heads on straight. What Ron DeSantis did, where he made it basically a crime for teachers, which is, they're calling it the anti-gay bill, which has nothing to do with anti-gay. Simply K through 3rd grade, you're not allowed to talk to the children about sex. That should be a given.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's
you're
sickening that
you're 5 through 9.
It's sickening that you're fighting. You have an issue with that, and ultimately, you got to look at them with compassion, but. It takes strong men to speak out against this lunacy, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching. Share the show. Appreciate you.
Yep.